My name is Dr. Branin. I'm a New York-based naturopathic doctor and expert in women's fertility and hormonal balance. Today, I wanted to talk about uterine fibroids. And so what are uterine fibroids? So uterine fibroids are basically abnormal growths. They're considered benign, so they're basically like a benign tumor that are very much driven by our hormones. Typically, we usually think of them as a result of estrogen dominance, but there's even been some studies even showing that progesterone also has a role in the formation of uterine fibroids. And so the uterine fibroids, they can form inside the uterine cavity, but they can also form inside the wall, so kind of what we call an intramural fibroid. And they can cause all kinds of, they can either go unnoticed or they can actually cause some issues. Typically, usually women will complain of bleeding in between periods, increased bleeding during period, cramping both during menstruation, but also increased ovulation cramping, and even pain and cramping during intercourse. The fibroids, they can get quite large and can also cause frequent urination because they add additional pressure to the bladder. They can also cause GI symptoms, gas, bloating, constipation. And another thing that, at least in my practice, I've definitely seen women complain is that they have a hard time with their pants and getting either tight skirts or jeans on because in some cases, fibroids can be quite massive. Now, most women suffering from fibroids might have had a conversation with their gynecologist, and their gynecologist might be either encouraging laparoscopic surgery or even more extreme, a hysterectomy due to the fibroids. But the good news is that there actually are natural methods in place that patients can actually shrink their fibroids naturally. And also something to note is that even if you do end up getting surgery for your fibroids, they may come back. And so even if you are someone who's watching this and have already had laparoscopic surgery, obviously if you have a hysterectomy, that's a whole other topic. This is still probably very valuable information and things that you might want to consider. So what are some of the ways how can one shrink their fibroids naturally? So the first thing is, again, specifically I'm a naturopath, so always looking for root cause. And the first thing really is looking at xenoestrogens. And xenoestrogens, or also things like what we call endocrine disruptors, these are chemicals that basically mimic the hormones in our body, and they cause all kinds of issues. And these chemicals can be found in the plastic water bottle that we're drinking out of, the cleaning products that we use, our cosmetics, our hair care products. So when one of the key parts of a fibroid shrinking plan is eliminating these types of toxins, as well as the other part is really facilitating all of our methods of detoxification, specifically liver, really supporting liver detoxification, because actually that is where we detoxify all of our hormones, and also how our liver is functioning determines what types of metabolites, so that's basically the breakdown product of our hormones. It determines what is the what pathways we will be detoxifying our hormones. Also connected with liver, we do some detoxification of our hormones through our intestinal tract, and so really working with both facilitating, specifically actually constipation can impact our detoxification of hormones, so that's something also really to consider. The other is stress. So when we're stressed, that actually can cause hormonal imbalances for many reasons. One, stress can delay or actually prevent ovulation, and that can cause a shift in the production of progesterone to estrogen. So we only produce progesterone when we ovulate, and so if we're not ovulating, that can cause hormonal imbalances. Also, stress has an impact on, increases cortisol levels, has an impact on thyroid. When our thyroid is not functioning properly, our hormones can also become out of balance. And then the other big factors are lifestyle and diet, specifically choosing clean eating, choosing foods that are not going to be high in pesticides or hormones. And then there are also some key foods, things like dairy, things that are going to also have an impact on our hormones. And then the other key part of specifically more of a natural approach to shrinking fibroids would be using herbs and nutrients, both to balance hormones and to, again, really facilitate our detoxification pathways. So on to herbs. So some of my favorite herbs when I'm working with a woman who is wanting to shrink her fibroids naturally are, I love shepherd's purse, both as a tea or a tincture or in some formulated products. Shepherd's purse is what we call a styptic herb, and so it's very drying. In addition to using it to help my female patients shrink fibroids, it can also be very useful for any type of heavy menstrual bleeding. The other herb that I also like is Vitex, also known as chaste tree berry, and why that can be really helpful with fibroids is regulating progesterone and helping to balance out estrogen and progesterone. So that can be a very effective herb. And then all of our liver supportive herbs, whether it's yellow dock, milk thistle, artichoke, all can be very beneficial. Other female herbs that I really like, black cohosh can be very beneficial, lady's mantle, and then there's a formula that I normally use in my practice called Turska's formula, which is, it's very strong. It has some very strong anti-spasmodic herbs in it, and that can be very effective in helping a woman shrink her fibroids naturally. Now, when it comes to other supplements, some specific nutrients that I often use in a natural protocol for fibroids include N-acetylcysteine, also known as NAC or NAC. NAC is a very strong antioxidant and helps to increase levels of glutathione. It also has helps aid in liver detoxification. Again, we know that liver detoxification is so important. Indole-3 carbinol. So indole-3 carbinol, the other form of indole-3 carbinol, DIM, which all are derived from our cruciferous vegetables, things like broccoli and kale and cabbage. DIM, or indole-3 carbinol. Why that can be really helpful is, as I talked about, metabolic pathways and metabolites of our key hormones, estrogen and progesterone. Basically, indole-3 carbinol really helps with the detoxification of estrogen and reducing its ability to cause the growth of uterine fibroids. In fact, actually, DIM can be so effective that some women, specifically with fibroids, when they start it, actually can have an uptick in pain. And the reason is that it's actually the cutting off of the blood supply to the fibroids that's actually causing pain. So it's actually almost a good sign when that happens. My other favorite supplement is calcium D-glucarate, and similar to both DIM and NAC, it helps with the detoxification of hormones through the liver. And so what is the main naturopathic approach to uterine fibroids? So as a naturopath, we're always looking for root cause. So the first, definitely looking at hormonal imbalances, typically usually considering estrogen dominance, and where is it coming from? Is it coming from overuse of products that have xenoestrogens? Is liver function compromised in some way? Whether having too many toxins, specifically alcohol, for example. Typically, usually when I'm working with a patient, it's really a good idea to avoid alcohol because we want to make sure that our liver is functioning as much as possible. Also, exclusion of dairy products. So dairy, even if it's grass-fed organic, is popped full of hormones because what is milk for? It's to feed a baby cow and give the baby cow a complete set of nutrients, including hormones. So want to avoid dairy as much as possible, and that even includes sheep and goat's milk as well. Sugar also should be reduced because that is also going to have an impact on hormones. And then the other key component, specifically when we're thinking about hormonal dysregulation, stress, and as I mentioned before, because of stress's impact on ovulation, but also stress increases inflammation. Fibroids, just like another condition somewhat similar but a little bit different, endometriosis, there is definitely a inflammation component. And so really want to make sure that we reduce inflammation as much as possible. And then in addition to, again, like really looking at hormonal balance, stress, sleep, exercise, routes of elimination. Another thing that most naturopaths often use when it comes to helping a woman shrink her fibroids naturally is castor oil packs. And so what is a castor oil pack? A castor oil pack is we take flannel and we saturate it with castor oil. We place it on the liver and abdomen with a little bit of heat. And basically it has a drawing effect, a detoxification effect. It also reduces inflammation. And I find in my practice, the women that I work with that are able to do this anywhere from at least 3 to 4 times a week for about 30-45 minutes, definitely tend to have better results than my patients that don't. So I know that was a lot of information, and I hopefully you found it very useful. Again, if you're someone who is just diagnosed with fibroids, or even someone who has possibly just had surgery for fibroids and would like to make sure to prevent them in the future, hopefully you found this video quite helpful. And if you're looking for similar content, then please subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can also follow me on Instagram at Dr. Ivy Branin, or I have a wellness blog at simplicityhealthassociates.com. Again, my name is Dr. Ivy Branin. I'm a naturopathic doctor in New York City, and wishing you lots and lots of health and happiness. See you next time.